All right, y'all. What's going on? I'm back doing another book review. I just finished a book this morning, actually, and that book is Pachinko. This was an excellent book. This is probably my favorite book I've ever read, like, all time. And I know I said in the other video that Frankenstein was my favorite, but this one takes the cake by far. Honestly, I'll say by far. This was an excellent book. This was probably the longest book I ever read, and keep in mind, I'm a new reader, technically. So I've only started reading this year, but there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about with this book. There's a lot of themes that I want to talk about. I think this book covers a lot of different topics, like political topics, religious topics, racism, the war, because this book takes place between 1910 all the way to like 1990, like the 90s, early 90s, which that's a long freaking time. That's almost 100 years. So that's a whole freaking century. But it was done excellently. I thought that I would struggle with this book a lot because of how long of a time period it spanned across. Because a lot of like medieval books I've never gotten into because it's really difficult, or I feel like it's difficult for me to remember the characters and remember the themes and this person did this time ago and whole lot of stuff. But regardless, I do have a couple of things that this book kind of got me thinking about, and I'm just going to share them because this is my channel and I'm just talking about books. But yeah, so this book, I think it only took me a few days to read. Whenever I made the Dorian Gray video, which I think maybe that was like a week ago, maybe it was like 5, 6 days, 6, 7. That's how long it took me to read. So from the day I uploaded the Dorian Gray video was when I started reading this book. Smells good. And yeah, let's talk about it. Pretty much the first thing I like to talk about with this book that covers, like a theme that's covered, is emotional trauma, especially between generations. This is a topic that interests me very much. I'm very fascinated by knowing emotions of people who are older than me because it can be really easy to get caught up in your own life, experiences. Nothing wrong with that. You're not selfish for only making decisions based on your life experiences because it's your life. But other people, especially parents like my mom or my dad, it's really interesting to learn about their emotional trauma and their experiences, and it kind of helps you to understand why they are the way they are and what experiences took place to inform the decisions that they make for themselves and for you if you're their kid. This handles it really well. So it starts off with Sunja, and she's like in a little village in Korea, I think it was. Forgive me if I mess up saying like Korea or Japan because it kind of goes back and forth. A lot of this book covers the war between Korea and Japan and like racism. I mean, a big plot point, something that like a trivial moment in this book is due to racism and imposter feeling that you're not a Korean or you're not Japanese. And this is not a spoiler because it's on the back of the book and I didn't read the back of the book, so I thought it was a huge spoiler. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. It's on the back of the book. But the book is really big, so obviously there's a lot more to it than just that little tiny plot point. But she gets pregnant by Hansu and he's married and has like 3 kids, 3 daughters, something like that. And she feels betrayed. The base emotion is betrayal. I mean, she fell in love with this guy. She thought he loved her too, and then he ended up having a wife and kids, and she didn't believe him when he said, I'll take care of you, baby girl. I will have a home in Korea and I have my family in Japan and we'll make it work somehow. But she wasn't really for that. Anyways, this pastor, Isak, comes through and he is at like the doorstep. He's sick. They take care of him. They spend a lot of time together, and he's like, yo, I probably will die soon. I have tuberculosis and I've been sick all my life and grew up in house, never went to school because I was too sick. So let me marry you, let me wife you up. I'll take care of the kid. It's cool, he's not mine. I don't really care. And maybe we'll have some more. And they did. They had 2 sons, Noah and Mozazu, something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it. I did listen to the audiobook for a couple chapters, but I read most of it because it was really intriguing. And with some of the words being in Korean or Japanese, it's easier to see it than hear it and remember that's what that is, that's who that is, that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, emotional trauma, man, it really gets into it. And you get super deep into Sonja's, like, her life and her trauma, her experiences, her emotions, how she feels with certain things, how she feels being betrayed, how she feels wondering if Hansu will come back after she told him, I don't want to see you anymore, go away. Leaving Korea, leaving the small town to go live with Isak, with his brother in her future sister-in-law. It really gets into her, and you feel bad for her. You definitely empathize, sympathize with her. But this book is written so well because you feel so deeply for this character, and then she has a kid, and later on, like the second part of the book, because it's technically 3 books in one, so the second book, you start feeling really deeply for the kids, and you get into their lives and their struggles between feeling of you're getting bullied, and there's kids being pushed to suicide because they're Korean, and apparently they're not good enough when they live in Japan, which is so freaking crazy. And this is like the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And you get super deep into their lives. And then they have kids. And you get super deep into their lives. And it's like, it's so much emotional baggage. At the end of the book, you're kind of emotionally exhausted because you're like, I got so deeply into this person's life and their traumas. And then I got into their kids' life and their traumas. And then their kids' life and their traumas. And then later down the road, probably their kids and their life and their traumas. And one thing I did think about was I would probably continue to read this if this was a series and it went all the way up to present day 2026. But at the same time, I feel like it would, if you kept going, it would kind of dilute and rinse and repeat the message of like struggling with your identity and relationships and these different people in your life and family and all that stuff. It would probably get a little repetitive. But this book was a very good balance between multiple generations. I think it was 4, because you had the mom, and then the mom's daughter, Sunja, and then her kids, and then their kids. So yeah, like 4 or 5-ish generations. So I think they end up having kids too. Solomon and I don't know, maybe not. I forgot. I just finished it, and I'm kind of like, I started reading another book immediately after, so I'm trying to remember. But yeah, it's really just an interesting topic to think about, emotional trauma between your family. I mean, it's so interesting to hear about this, and I wonder a lot of these situations and these reactions, would these kids have made those decisions and thought this way? Would they have felt comforted by knowing that their mom and their dad went through these exact same experiences as they did? With Korean culture, there was a part of the book where Isak, little spoiler, so I'm letting you know, Isak, he gets thrown in prison because his associates or co-workers, I guess, of the church were not worshiping the emperor, instead they were worshiping God, and they got thrown in prison. And in Korea, or were they in Japan at this time? I think they were in Japan. They don't get to come out of prison until they're pretty much dying, because they don't want to keep them in their prisons and have to worry about them if they die. So they're like, all right, go home, you're literally dying. And Isak's son comes home, and he's like, there's this beggar in my house, and he doesn't even realize that's his papa, that's his daddy. Well, kind of, that's his daddy, and he didn't even know it. He was so disheveled and beaten up and bruised and battered and old and aged. I don't know, I forgot what I was even talking about. It's just so interesting with the emotional stuff. Also, forgive me if I look like a little yellow. This brown kind of makes me look like I have liver failure, I was told by my mother. I don't know. I can't even get my thoughts together because I'm already thinking about, yeah, would they be comforted? Would they have felt comforted? Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. When he got home, he ran to tell his mom, Sunja. He was like, yo, daddy's home. And she's like, oh, you're such a good boy. Thank you for telling me. And she's saying like, it's not common. It's actually looked down upon if you praise your kid in this culture, because you want them to grow up to be a certain way. And you want them to feel a certain way and not feel like, oh, I get praised for anything I do, which I guess kind of makes sense. But to some extent, like, it's good to praise your kids and tell them you're proud of them. But I wonder if they said that more, if I'm proud of you more, they would act differently. And I don't want to spoil what happens with Noah, which is the kid between Hansu and Sunja, but Isak is fathering because he said, I'll take care of him. I don't want to spoil it, but he struggles so much, and I feel so bad for him. He struggles so much with his identity, and he even goes to the extent to completely just get rid of Korean culture, anything in his life. He moves away, gets married, has kids. They don't even know he's Korean or has Korean enemies. They don't even know about his parents. He's like, whatever, they didn't happen. They didn't exist. And it's so interesting. I wonder if they were a bit more transparent and vulnerable about like, hey, look, you're gonna get prosecuted and chastised for your race and your history and your culture, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of being Korean, which is nothing you should be ashamed of. I mean, both sides, Korean and Japanese, they both suffered a lot. Okay, so I guess I pretty much covered a lot of my notes that I had written down. But one thing I didn't talk about is the visuals. This book is written impeccably well. The visuals in this book are so beautiful. It's that perfect balance that I love, and I recommend to anybody getting into books. You won't get overwhelmed. It's a certain amount of visual detail where it's like you can picture a specific landscape or item or something in your head without it being overly like, okay, wrap it up, you're doing too much now. It strikes a balance really well. It's really beautiful, but it's so beautiful because you're in the super early 1900s and it's this not vapid landscape, but there's not a lot of modernization as today, right? So you have just small villages and like very small houses with very thin walls. And I don't know, you have this image. It's kind of like a Ghost of Yote, the game. It's kind of like that landscape in your mind. I was visualizing that type of landscape a lot. And then by the end of the book, they're talking about Sony televisions and these buildings and restaurants and signs and lights and all this crazy stuff that wasn't even in the beginning of the book. So it's like, I mean, it's separated by 3 books. It's like book 1, book 2, book 3, and it really is 3 different books. Like if you split this book up into 3 different books and sold them separately, I mean, it would, like, I don't even know how to say it. It's just done so well. Like, I felt like I read 3 books, but it felt like one book at the same time, at one cohesive story that flowed really well. It wasn't like okay, I could tell this is a second book. It just flowed perfectly. But the visualization is really interesting because you're like, I was just a couple days ago reading this, visualizing this small village with, this fishing village with nothing in it. And now we're in freaking Seoul in like Tokyo with these huge buildings and beautiful interior universities, and it's crazy. It's kind of cool. And you don't really realize it until they bring in like the Sony television. You're like, dang, we're so far in the future now. We're in the 80s and it's like there's television now. And Sunja, who was growing up in this super small village, is now getting to watch TV with her mother. I mean, the writing is super good, but I guess it is another part of writing a book across many generations. I mean, that kind of comes with it. But they just did a really good job. Min Jin Lee did a super good job at describing stuff. It was a really beautiful book visually. Honestly, I think I've said this with some other books, but I'd actually come back and read this again. I think if I was in a reading slump, I would definitely read this again, because most of my reading of this book was made up of days where I'd sit in this chair right here and I would read for like 4 or 5 hours and just like go through it. I would go on a walk and listen to the audiobook because I didn't get enough of the book. I love this book so much. I need to see what my other notes were. I'm trying to think. Maybe that was about it. Okay, I did go back, check the notes. There's actually one last thing. I was curious on, can you be transparent with your kids about feelings and emotions? And at what age is that possible? Because as a parent, you kind of lay a foundation for your kids that you're somebody who knows everything. And I was actually talking to my therapist about this today. And it's like, you kind of know everything. Your parent's supposed to be this almighty, like, you go to them, no matter what, you go get your parent. But it's their first time living too. I mean, they were kids as well. They're still kind of kids. Like, they don't know what they're doing. I mean, no parent truly knows how to parent. I mean, you can say, do this, do that, and people get rich off manuals, but there's really no guide to parenting. And it's kind of like, can you have emotional transparency with your kids about their experiences? Or would it kind of blur the lines of like parent, child? Would I be able, if I was a young kid, like maybe 8 or 9, would I be able to go to my parents about this kind of stuff, about like feeling bullied? It's interesting because it's also Korean, Japanese, it's also that culture. There's a culture side of it where you kind of are just like, grow up to be a hard worker, you do good in school, you make your family name proud. And I think every culture is a bit different. I'm curious to see if there's any books out there where maybe it's a culture where you do share a lot with your parents and there's a lot of emotional transparency. And I'm thinking maybe like a French or Italian or maybe like a European type of thing. But I don't know, I don't really see that much. And it's kind of like, don't be super emotionally transparent and open with your kids, because then you blur the line of like, now we're friends rather than parent-child. But I feel like there has to be some sort of, maybe there's not. Maybe you need to go through hardships and do it by yourself. And then later in life, you get to hear from your parents their experiences when you're more developed. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe you shouldn't be super emotionally transparent about your experiences and your traumas, because that puts maybe an emotional baggage on your kid. I don't know. You let me know in the comments what you think about that. This was my book review of PACHINKO by Min Jin Lee. Excellent book, 5 out of 5, 5 stars on Goodreads and in general. And I would definitely read this again. This is my favorite book I've ever read. Let's see if any other books will take the title. I don't think so. This book is pretty up there for being an excellent book. But yeah, hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for watching, and I'm gonna come out with some more reviews in the future. I'll see you in another video.